Good evening, everyone. I'm excited that we're here today. This is the eighth session. This is the eighth time we've been together. We have a total of 12, but technically we have really 13 sessions. After our 12th session, we will have a little celebration, graduation, where we'll invite all of the speakers will be back and we'll just have a hurrah, hurrah for everyone. And so you'll be issued your certificates and so on and so forth. And we'll get to talk about how wonderful your experience has been in the Bahamas Natural Resources Emerging Leaders Program. As everyone knows, I am Aj Cunningham, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Foundation. I welcome you, Emerging Leaders. So I'm just going to go across my screen to see how everyone's doing. So Jared, how are you, sir? How's your week?
Everything is fine, lovely. It was a very productive week. Have a lot of stuff that we're working on with the food security project.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Welcome. Jafara, how are you today?
Good evening, everyone. I am great. I am well. Tired, but still pushing.
That's the good thing. How about you, Trey? How's your week going?
It's been great. Similar to Jafar, week and saddle, but other than that, I have been well.
Wonderful. Jabez, how about yourself?
I've been good as well, staying productive, staying busy. Yeah, it's overall good though.
And O'Neill, the quiet one, how are you, sir?
I'm good. My week was all right. It wasn't too crazy or anything.
Okay. And Ethan, your second session, how are you, sir? How are you today?
I'm doing well, sir.
That's good. So we have Kaylin is still hiding behind the shield of the camera. Kaylin, are you there? Are you ready to appear?
I'm here, but I'm in the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Mario, your father must have you cooking and washing dishes while the session. My goodness, Mario. I know you're a barrister, but come on now. How are you, sir, Mario?
Good. We literally just walked in, so I'm glad we were on time for once.
Oh, wonderful. So I see that Andrea is not joining us yet, so we will just go ahead and we're going to get started. So as you guys remember, we're going to broadcast this live on Facebook. And before I go through the introductions of Mr. Chipman, I will set the stage up for Facebook. So give me one moment. I'll be right back. Good evening, everyone. Again, let me get my camera on. Good evening. What's going on? It's jumping. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Facebook audience. Welcome to the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation Emerging Leaders Development Program. For those who may be visiting for the very first time, we have in the foundation the number one resource of the Bahamas, and natural resources is a hot word today, but the people, our Bahamians, are the number one natural resources. And as a natural resource organization, we find that it's important that we invest and help develop our people, who in turn will be the champions for the protection and the conservation and the economic viability of our natural resources. Many organizations are out in the Bahama land, international and national organizations that are work around conservation of a marine life, a terrestrial life, an ecological life. Like the foundation, we champion their cause as well. And in addition to that, some other organizations as well, we champion the Bahamian people. And as we look to grow the foundation and expand our tentacles through our footprint in our territorial archipelago, it's important that we champion the emerging leaders. And all the participants in this program are fire-branded Bahamians that are passionate about our natural resources, and they're interested in how do they develop their competencies and skill sets to make a positive contribution for us, the current generation, and for generations unborn. And in the part of that process, one of the most important piece is your brand. And how do you introduce yourself? And so we have a special guest this evening who will talk to us about developing your personal brand. How does one develop that? How do you build it? And also, what's that self-introduction looks like? So in that regard, I am so excited to bring to you and introduce to you, I should say, Mr. Reece Chipman. Now, Mr. Reece Chipman, as some of you may very well know, pardon me a moment here. My screen is, you know how technology works. We got to get this right. One moment. The screen just acts up when it wants to act up. Bear with me a moment. Okay, thank you for that. So let's introduce Mr. Chipman. There's some things that he mentioned to me that we have yet to really bring all the way to the foreground, but he is the past president of the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants and director of the Board of Institute Chartered Accountants of the Caribbean. Mr. Chipman is a founding member of the Bahamas Investment and Securities Business Association. He is a certified public accountant. Also, he was on the school board for 9 years, serving CI Gibson School, Sierra Walker, and D.W. Davis Junior High School. He was also a board member of the Public Works Cooperative Credit Union and the first director of the Bahamas Kakik Awards. Got it right. Mr. Chipman formed SMS Chartered Accountants and the Nastac Group Limited to provide quality training in financial services as an impetus to development of the capital markets in the Bahamas. Mr. Chipman is the managing director of Nastac Investment Group Limited, a financial and corporate service provider licensed with the Securities Commissions of the Bahamas. Also, Mr. Chipman was recently assigned or was awarded as a Justice of the Peace recently. So that's another accolade and accomplishment to his brand that he continues to make a contribution to our country. Mr. Chipman as well was awarded the Bahamas Executive of the Year by the Bahamas Financial Services Board and was a member of the Audit Committee of the Central Bank of the Bahamas. And he is also a member of Parliament in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for the Centerville constituency. Mr. Chipman, we welcome you and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham, and thank you all for joining in this conference with the foundation. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate seeing all of you young faces, and that is a good thing. And it's not to be looked at lightly in terms of your youth and what you are able to accomplish and the things you're able to do, not only to help yourselves, but most importantly, to help others. And so I do appreciate being here. I know it's a lot of, when someone says send your bio, I now look to see what aspect of my bio do they want? Because, as human beings and as people in this global environment, we have to identify with various aspects of our paths, you know, because there are some pathways that I could share an entertainment life because I'm from an entertainment background, entertainment family, and that narrative I could exaggerate. In some areas, I'm a chartered accountant, financial services. I could also go that line, and then of course the parliamentarian, you can go that line. So there is a lot of diversity in us as people. However, you know, I'm one that believes in, I believe in being a specialist in what you do and consuming yourself in that so that you make the most of it. And so having said that, I just want to, yes, I do have a broad range of things that I would have done over a long period of time. And you may have so much that you have done over a period of time. But what I found is that with our Bahamian culture, we do not sell ourselves. Somehow they have taught us not to say or speak of what all that we would have done. And that it has to change. We have to start to talk about us, talk about ourselves, talk to people. You know, I remember going to work in New York for Ernst & Young some years ago when I transferred to New York City. And I wondered why I wasn't getting on all of the bigger jobs, is what they called it, like the Dreyfus Funds and the Hyatt Hotels. And so I went to the partner and I said to him, I said, you know, I'm just a bit concerned that all of my colleagues, you know, because you could have easily made it a black or white issue because all of them were Caucasian. I said, why all of my colleagues getting on the bigger jobs and I'm not? And he said to me, well, you know, Reece, you're not communicating with the people. You don't go out, you don't socialize, you're not building relationships. And part of this business is building relationships, notwithstanding that you're an accountant. You have to be able to build relationships. You have to be able to share with each other. You have to be able to educate each other, learn more from each other. And so that gave me the direction that I can learn from absolutely anyone. I can learn from my children, they can learn from me, we can learn from each other and share. So I'm not the begin all end all. And that was a powerful lesson to me, is that it's not about me. The picture is so much bigger than me. And so when I do things, I don't even look at it as me doing it. I see it as a part of a part of the future. Which means, you know, if God gave us 70 years, I cannot be the begin all end all. It cannot be about me. And when I'm able to recognize and identify that leadership is about what you are able to see through each other or through others, and also what you have become because of each other. I mean, I am here today because you might not know, but because of some of your parents. Some of your parents might have been a part of who I am today. So for that, I appreciate being a part of you, because we're all somehow connected, whether it's through our nationality or even through universal humanization. That's who we are. And we have to make the most of this journey. So today, what I wanted to speak about, and what Mr. Cunningham would have, shared, was personal branding. Personal branding it's not easy when you're trying to brand yourself, because you have so many different forces coming at you when you say, okay, I want to be this or do this or be that or even do that. And so if you do not brand yourself, it has to be from within. So we cannot expect someone else to brand us, even though marketing is a part of the art of doing business. Branding is something that is from within, and it has to be taken personally because it's who you are. I mean, we can put on a show, but for how long? right? And so when I looked at how I have had to brand myself, I've had to, first of all, know who I am, okay? And who is that, right? Who I am, meaning who am I through the eyes of my parents because of how I was brought up. And then, of course, what I would like to be or what I would like to pass on to my children is still a part of my brand or the brand that I want to set for myself. And so in that, I've always thought that, you have to be authentic, right? It has to be real. Otherwise, it wouldn't last, right? And only good will last, right? That's a whole biblical theory, right? And that's a good theory, because what you want to do is practice doing what is good, practice doing the right thing, right? There are times when we are all challenged in the circumstances that we are in, that may have an impact on the way we brand ourselves. And, if I left it up to people to decide who I was, really, and as you're growing up, many people will try to tell you who you are based on whether your father was an entertainer or your mother was a doctor or what have you, or even the way you talk, the way you walk. They will try to tell you who you are, what you are. And I have always said to myself, I will be the one to determine who I am through Christ, of course. And when I say that, I mean through who he wants me to be, not through what others want me to be. And as a young boy growing up, I was always teased in primary school, especially because, of course, I spoke differently than everybody else. My voice was softer. I grew up around many girls, so I always had the kind of the fanfare of what one may say is what do you call it, glamour, But even in that, I didn't let that determine who I was. I still said to myself, I will give me enough time to figure me out, and I won't let anybody make that decision for me. So in branding, you have to be real with yourself and acknowledge these things. My brand, or the way that I branded myself personally, was that, what do I want to see myself as? Not what somebody told me I was, but what do I want to see myself as? And most importantly, what do I want do I want my brand to be one of legacy? Or do I want my brand to be one of where I am today, or what am I doing in the now? When you have come to share in this personal sacrifice, which is a sacrifice of a commitment to a picture bigger than yourself, you realize that it has to be about legacy. It has to be about what you want to carry on. And so what I try to do, and like I said, branding is about practice. You got to practice this. This don't come naturally. It's practicing. It's practicing to be honest with yourself. It's practicing to be honest with others. I'm not saying that I'm totally honest all the time. Sometimes many of us may not say some things, right? That doesn't mean that we're dishonest. It just means we left out some things that we should have said, maybe, according to others. But when you are doing that, practice to be as honest as you can, because that's a big part. Practice to be honest with yourselves. Many of us lie to ourselves. I know that sounds strange, but we do. We said, no, I'm still slim. I'm not as heavy anymore. At that time, we know that we are heavy, we can see it, but we don't want to face that reality. And so we have to also practice being honest with ourselves, telling ourselves that really, you did gain another 30 pounds. I mean, and what's wrong with that? And guess what? You will turn 40, and you will turn 50, and you will turn 60, and yes, you will die like everybody else. That's honesty, right? But many people don't even want to know they're going to die. That's how the narrative of the world and our culture has built in us this level of awkwardness, about human nature that we really feel or think that we're in control, and we're not. And so once we are able to identify and be honest with ourselves, and we recognize that life is about that time span, getting from birth to death, and in that period of time, doing all that we can, the best that we can, as fearless as we can, notwithstanding what others may think about us. And then we start to define who you really are. And so being honest with yourselves, knowing who you are is important. Also, what I find in branding, you still have to take the high road because you want to be seen as someone that people can come to, whether it's business or whether it's personal, personal life. So, for example, in business, I always try to be on time for functions. I consume myself with what I have agreed to. I don't, for example, if I am here doing this presentation with Aj, no, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not trying to read a book. I'm not trying to answer a phone. I'm not trying to hear my children. As a matter of fact, I told them total silence. That's because I want to make the most of this time that I'm actually sharing with you. I don't want to give you half of what God has led and placed all of us in the circumstance to do and to have. And so I try to be as on time as I can, as disciplined as I can, right? Because if you say to me, Mr. Chipman, we're having a church service and I'd like you to attend, and I said, okay, fine. Or you say, well, the constituents, for example, they'd say, oh, so-and-so just died, would you attend a funeral? And I said, sure. And they're almost always surprised when I stay through the entire service, even though I never knew who they were or never knew that particular person. See, it wasn't about the politics for me. It was about what message am I sending? What brand am I sending? Am I sending a brand that if I'm asked to do something, I will give it the best that I can? Or am I sending a brand, or let me just go stop in for 15 minutes and show my face? I don't do the show my face because that's wasting my time and I'm not making the most of it. And so at the end of the service, not only do I know the family, not only did I remember what their mother or cousin had done for me at some point in time, or what I would have done for them. And before you know it, I'm at the house and I'm like, oh, gee, this is Judy. This is Judy. We were in 4th grade together. I can't believe this was your cousin, so-and-so. And so you must always know that every day you are building on your brand. This is not it's so much bigger than us as individuals. And so as you continue to build on that brand, you will continue to see why you have to be as honest as you can, why you have to be as disciplined as you can, why you have to share as much as you can, because it all comes back to making sure that you are living your life to the fullest and giving as much as you can in order to be successful. So when you look at branding, we must look at those factors. We must look at respecting and appreciating each other. You know, I tell my children every day, we don't know when we will need someone, right? Whether it's in business or whether it's in personal life. And so you ought to respect people. You ought to be able to appreciate someone. There are some key aspects, of course, that I would have learned from my parents, just being able to continue to say good morning, good afternoon, thank you, you're welcome. These are old adages, but let me tell you, they work wonders. People still want to hear thank you. Young people still want to hear good morning, and even you all want to hear good morning, right? And sometimes in the constituency, I'm passing people and their face are all screwed up. I'm like, oh God, I said good morning. So, and of course some will walk past and then I say, did you hear me? And of course he'll turn around and mumble if it's a he. And you get that. My job, though, is to be respectful and appreciate them for who they are, what they are, what they'd like to do. That's a part of my brand. I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change that for anyone because that is what has made me who I am today. And so if I see you and I can help you, I will. And that's not looking for anything in return. That's what the gift God has given me to give to others. I mean, gee, it didn't cost me anything to say good morning. It didn't cost me anything to say, hi, how are you doing? Are you okay? Can I help? But somehow we get caught up into the social, this social political culture, social educational culture, what school you went to, what who your parents are. And believe it or not, when I went to Price Waterhouse looking for a job, they asked me who my parents were. And that really discouraged me because both my parents were entertainers. What was I going to tell them? My father's a limbo dancer and my mother is a dancer. I didn't know what to say. I mean, all I could say was entertainers. And it was just one of the hardest interviews for me at the age of 21 after having come from school and passed the CPA exam. This is what they were asking me. And needless to say, I didn't get the job. And this is in the Bahamas. And I always saw that gentleman as someone, I was like, why would he do that to a 21-year-old who's just graduating from school, owe people for school, for having gone to school, trying to make some money back to pay people back. And all he can ask me in an interview is to find out who my ma and pa is, just to know if I should get a job. And they didn't give me the job. And you would see your friends who you went to school with, right? Who you were on top of the class. You were getting A's, they were getting C's and D's, but they were at PW, they were at Price Waterhouse. And so these things were so discouraging to me as a young, so-called educated. That's why in the Bahamas, don't mind that they're lawyers, doctors, and accountants. They're all a part of a culture of mediocrity, non-democratic society that doesn't even allow you to open your mouth. All that money your parents paid for you to go to school, a lawyer, doctor, and you can't even dissent from a position. You can't even say, no, sorry, I don't agree with that. That's a problem. That's a big problem. You have children growing up in these professional homes who are under a category of I can't say how I feel or what I feel like saying in public because my father is a F&M or PLP. That must be crazy. So it doesn't matter what government is in. We are part of a culture where even going to school and getting all this education isn't even a significant brand in our country because they can't even find work. So in our country now, to be branded as someone successful, it has been about trying to get into parliament. I never aspired to be in parliament. I just didn't. It was nothing that I thought was something that interests me. I don't know why it didn't interest me. It just didn't. I just maximized my potential wherever I was at. I did the best I can, be on time, and people say come somewhere, be as disciplined, paid as much attention as I could. And somehow that was a ladder or a bridge to where I'm at today. And so these things that I've used to brand myself, you know, which is, I try to be as honest as I can. I try to be as respectful as I can. I try to consume myself wherever I am because I want to make the most of it. Somehow that kept taking me up this ladder, so-called successful ladder. And look what's underneath it: respect for others, honesty, directness. I am going to tell you my point of view. Irregardless, it doesn't mean we won't be friends. I mean, I'm with my wife now for 14 years. We've disagreed. I can tell you. But it was a matter of progress. not a matter of digress or a matter to say, I don't like you anymore because you don't agree with something I agree with. And so as we grow as a country and a nation, one of the biggest things is to identify with who we are as a culture and what is our brand? What are you branding yourself to be? Who do you think that you are? You know, that's one of those scriptures when they ask Jesus, when Jesus asked, well, who do they say that I am? And it wasn't until one person said it, he said, you are the son of a living God. Living. That means we are constantly a part of this big picture that we need to continue to connect with in order to see progress. And so for me, you know, when I came, I was out of work for with a CPA license, out of work for 9 months. I mean, I was so discouraged. I went to Florida to a friend, and not a friend, my cousin actually, and just hung out, like just wanting to, all this education I had from this fancy school in New York, and I couldn't find a job in the Bahamas. It was the craziest thing. But anyway, after 9 months, I got a call, finally started to work with a company, and of course, consumed myself with the idea of this career of being a chartered accountant. And I continued in that vein. I started the Nastac group, which was a group to teach people about investing, savings, about money, about how to come up with a mindset of capital markets, because that is really the key. That's the vision I see for this country, is a capital markets mindset, one where we understand how investments grow and the growth of an investment, how it has an impact on the very livelihood of individuals. Do you know we don't even have a retirement class in the Bahamas? Where do you see our people who are retired go? They're probably home, the house is hot, and all they could talk about or wait for is that next check from NIB. Where's our retirement class? Where's that class of people that have retired, done well, gone to Inagua, have a second home, chill out, probably have an assistant because they may be of age? We don't. That's an issue. Okay, that's an issue, because if we don't have a retirement class, we have to now take care of our grandparents and our parents. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You know, they're supposed to be able not only to take care of themselves, but able to share with their grandchildren whatever they may have or may not, or may have or may want to share. And so as we look at, so that's how I started the Nastac group. And this is important in terms of business and professional branding. I used to put my picture in the paper with the person who passed the exam, and I would be shaking their hands to say, congratulations, you passed the Series 7, the Financial Services course, and we appreciate you. All of the newspapers used to put these financial services executive in the papers every time we pass a student out. You know, it was cool because, you know, here's this company I started, the New York Stock Exchange was passing them out, and they were passing at high grades, et cetera. And so we were really happy about that. The politics kicked in and called the New York Stock Exchange. This is the government. The government of the Bahamas did this to me, a 28-year-old who was trying to teach people, just teach, have a class, and tell them to stop accepting the students from the Bahamas. Could you imagine trying to brand after someone does that, a government does that to you? And it was really, really a bad time for me because I couldn't understand, why would a government do this to one person who just wants to teach people about stocks, bonds, investing, financing? Someone wants to educate our people. Well, they weren't having it. So I continued to find ways to get them to, even the state of Virginia started to accept the people after the Bahamas stopped accepting. We went to the state of Virginia to ask them to help us to pass the Bahamian people. They started to do it. They found Virginia, stopped us in Virginia again. So I say that to say this, that through all of that, I still had to stand You see, this isn't, you don't have a choice right now, you young people. I don't care what, I mean, we all in this together. I mean, we don't even have a choice but to fight. No choice. Nobody's doing anything for you and they will not. You must be able to stand, be disciplined, be consistent, be relevant, be resilient, and you must keep pushing the mark. So as I kept passing those people, do you know what happened next? The Tribune and the Guardian stopped putting the people in the paper, stopped my advertisement. So you see how it's connected. It doesn't matter. See, it's a system. So here I am, no promotions, and I have to brand myself. So the only person carrying my photos now in the business section was the Punch. So I will continue to support the Punch. I don't care what they call them. I don't worry about their stories. I like the business section, and I like the section with the business and some of the politics, the political page. But through that, I still kept going, branding my school, the Nastac Group, as one that is honest, that is respectful of people, and that will continue to be relevant and resilient no matter what. To this day, I have people in my classes, gentlemen and ladies, who I didn't even have to call. My classes are full. I can't even lecture them anymore because I have to get somebody to help me with them. And I don't even have to advertise. What that is it speaks to respect for others. See, there's nothing they can do with the truth. You see, nothing you can do with the truth. You know, the truth is your strongest point. Just be who you are and push for excellence no matter what. Be respectful, even though they will be rude and the system may try to turn you away. You know who you are. You are a child of the living God, an inheritor of his kingdom. So that don't have nothing to do with that. They could do whatever they want to do. It doesn't even matter, because the bigger picture is you were sent here for a purpose. So branding is, sometimes we may look at personal branding and think somebody did that. Wow, how did they do that? Who marketed him? No, nobody. I market myself, right? Yes, if there's a marketing team that think they can work with me because they see something that they may want to accomplish, I may could assist. But it's important for you to recognize your brand. And your brand has not only to do with you, it's the bigger picture, has a lot to do with others and its purpose, right? And so, yes, I am as disciplined as I can be. I'm as honest as I can be. I respect, I appreciate others. And yes, I practice. This ain't no, this a lifelong process when you talk about branding, because you have to stick with it, right? And so for me, personal branding has been about knowing who I am in politics, in business, in life, in the world. I love honesty. I don't care what you say about me. You can tell me your opinion. That don't mean we won't be friends. I still love you like it was yesterday, but it doesn't impact my brand, okay? And so even though there may be a part of branding is, of course, opposition and the negative. That's why when I'm campaigning and I tell my people, go out on the street and let me know what the people say. In the beginning, in my first campaign, they come back with all these good things. I say something is wrong. And something has to be wrong. Not everyone out there is going to say something nice about me, even though they may not know me, you know, but no one ever knows you, who you are, right? Until you actually meet them and talk to them. They may have an idea, or they may think they know you based on who your parents are, who your friends are. You know, they have this saying, birds of a feather flock together. Well, I differ. I always stand by my difference with that, because I could flock with anybody. That don't mean me and them anything alike. You may call it chameleon. You may call it flamboyant. But it doesn't matter to me. I just love people. So I don't care who you are. If you want to hang out and talk to me for a couple of minutes, so what? But you ain't gonna tell me because I'm around you that me and you act and think the same way. No, it doesn't work that way. And so what I always looked at, and I continue to do, is you have to learn how to progress and maintain your brand, a progressive brand, right? Progressive. Progress doesn't mean that you're JP today, MP tomorrow, Prime Minister the next day, or something else. What progress means is how well you know yourself and you're able to connect to make the most out of who you are, where you are, and what you're doing for yourself and for others. You know, and that's what progress is. And so today, for example, you know, I just listening to all of you introduce yourself is just so fascinating to me, just to hear in your voice who you are. You know, to see that you're here, you're part of the BNRF. And this is something so important to you to be able to identify with your natural resources. So that again, in itself, you are branding yourself as someone who is interested introspectively in you as a human being and as a human resource that connects with the resources of the world and the resources of your country, and to say that, wait now, where is the connection? Why aren't we making this connection? Why are we not ensuring that this connectivity takes place between the human and physical resources of our country? And so one of the reasons why I brought the select committee for natural resources to the House, to the floor of the House, and it was approved unanimously, was because of the efforts of people like Aj Cunningham and Prescott and Miss Albury and those who have been there working with it. And I just started to say, wow, I didn't even know all of this stuff was here. Myself, 50 parliamentarian, didn't know about our natural resources. Could you believe that? Well, that's because that is the way the system in our culture has us. They tell us what they want to tell us. And so the political narratives has us talking about Shane Gibson and Anna Nicole instead of talking about natural resources. They have us talking about whatever else they want us to talk about besides the real issues. And guess what? We let them get away with that. We do let them get away with that. Well, that's one of the reasons why would have left the party system, because the party system did not recognize the democracy of who we are and where we are today. And what does that mean? You didn't even hold a convention in 5 years and you telling me you are a democratic organization? Well, I won't let my brand be impacted by that. I will remain one that is true to the cause. The cause is democracy. So if it is democracy, then you need to have your convention, which is the democratic right of your convention to vote, and then come to the people. But none of them have done that. They haven't even had their local government elections, which is supposed to happen every 3 years according to the law. They haven't had school board elections. So our democracy, which is a part of my brand, I want to be able to speak and dissent if I have to. I want to be able, I don't want my children living in a country where they are CPAs, doctors, and can't even find a job, much less be able to have a discussion. It's absolutely pathetic. And so when we start to talk about personal branding, this is serious. It's bigger than a person wanting to be this, that, or the next. This is about legacy branding for me. A brand of, you know, when we look at, let me just give you a little summary, and I'll try to be as condensed as I can. They branded us as entertainers, right? So we were dancers, junkanooers, you ring the cowbell, you beat the drum. And we loved it because that's who we knew ourselves to be. So we enjoyed being entertainers. But after having gone in Parliament and you look at the wall and you see all the Chipmans that were in Parliament over the years, why they didn't brand us as parliamentarians? And so I just wanted you to see how easy it is to create a narrative for one to believe in. And so now the brand is, we don't have any natural resources, so don't hurt your head. That's a narrative. And guess what? It lasted over these many, many, many years. Even though you have in your budget a line item for these natural resources, you have agreements with the natural resources, they are still telling you there's no natural resources. You're passing downtown, you're seeing the sand being dug up, you're seeing the raggedite being shipped, but they're still saying no natural resources. And so I say all of that to say to you, young men and women, create your own narrative here and base it on the truth, right? Personal branding comes from respect for others and people. You don't have to lie to somebody to get ahead. Why you have to beat up Peter or Paul to get ahead? It isn't necessary. You maintain your competitive edge by being just who you are, right? And who are you? Now, y'all don't want me to say that again. A child of a living God, an inheritance of his kingdom. And so if I say that, what I mean by that is to say to you that the stuff here is small stuff, which means we must approach it fearlessly. We must approach our purpose, our commitment fearlessly and with discipline. And with commitment. Don't tell me you're part of something and they say be there for 6 and you come 6:30 talking about you had something to do. Really? It wouldn't work. So the way this system works now, without the discipline, without the commitment, without the thrust to progress, your brand will become destroyed. What they will do with that is they will divide and conquer that brand. Your brand will fall into all kinds of different pieces. You wouldn't even have a brand. They wouldn't even know who you are. So that's why it's important for you to stay focused and stay disciplined. I've been saying the same thing from I walked into the House of Parliament, and I'm saying the same thing today. So you know what that is, right? That's a brand. That means that's who this person is. So when people say, oh, you're going to go to the PLP, the FNM, or this one or that one, they know me by now. If you're going to accept me, you better be willing and ready to accept democracy at its fullest. And so branding for me is about, again, knowing who you are. All the trials, all the bad things about you, visit them. All the good things, you just have to understand how they connect, right? Because when we started to do research on like my, when we were trying to organize the research in terms of my parliamentary heritage, you know, we started to look at not only the good side of it, but it's the bad side too. I mean, there's good and bad in all of us, good and evil in all of us. What we don't want to do is let the bad outshine the good, right? We got to make sure that good stays as high as it can. That's a category of branding. Otherwise, only, like I said, only what is good will last. And so as we come to, as I come here to share with you some of my personal stories, and how the challenge of branding. You know, I've been in financial services all of these years. And whenever they called people to speak at one of these conferences, as high as my company was on the list of successful financial training companies, they never called me these many, many years. But then that same person on the board will call me privately and say, oh, can you come and train me and 2 others at my office? But in the public, they would never tell me, Reece, we want you to speak at this financial services conference. Why? I don't know, but I'm not gonna let them stop me from doing what I have to do to be the best that I can be. And so, yes, it's these same people behind closed doors. They're calling, Reece, could you come and train me in my office? Don't, but she or he is on the board telling them, no, Reece, don't let Reece speak at this conference. And so for all these years, might have been at the top of my field, maybe, president of this, president of that. They don't call me to ask me to make a presentation, but they'll call everybody else in the Bahamas. That's how I used to look at it. And yes, I could have let that impact my brand, but I didn't. And I didn't because I knew that the picture was bigger than them. And yes, I've been in organizations where they tried to destroy me, you know, whether they tried to come up with things that, you know, somehow, I mean, there was one particular case where I really thought God had deserted me because I said this could not possibly be happening. I don't get mixed up. How do I not get mixed up? I tell you exactly what I say I'm going to do, and I do it. And if I'm not going to do it, I say, well, I'm not going to do it, or I have yet to see. But you ain't gonna get me to lie to you, because I'm not interested in that. I'm a person, I also like to sleep at night. I go to bed easy, even at this age, right? Because they say in the Bahamas, if you're a part of that corrupt system, they get you out. And see, that's another thing with that, this party system in the Bahamas. See, if you don't be a part of that corrupt wrap-up thing, if they ain't got nothing on you, you won't survive. So they're looking for somebody to have something on, you see, because if they have something on you, then you become compromised. I am not willing to be compromised when it comes down to the benefit of people, not me. Then come down to the benefit of others, especially Bahamians. You ain't gonna hold me hostage. And so my brand has to be able to speak. And if I am caught up in that and I start doing them foolishness you want me to do, I won't be able to speak. And so you have to be very cautious when you start to look at being successful in the Bahamas, because apparently success in the Bahamas mean you got to get mixed up. So we don't want to go in that direction. I don't want to go in that direction, because if I mix myself up, that means I have mixed up my children, and my children's children are mixed up. And I already told my children, I leaving nothing here for y'all to have to deal with. The only thing y'all have to deal with when I leave is my money. And you better deal with each other fairly. But don't let your brand become one that is compromised or that is corrupted. There is no future in that. And so being a member of parliament to me was a privilege. And it was a privilege because I thought I could have represented people, and I thought my brand would be what the responsible brand or responsible way to do something. Well, obviously, my brand isn't something that the parties consider progressive in terms of what their agenda is. However, my brand is fine with me. That's why I say, well, by party, I'm fine. I will do the best I can for as many people as I can. I will spread the brand of honesty, of doing what is good, what is right, being respectful to each other and appreciate each other as much as I can. And I hope that this country catches on. But I'm only one person. I can only do the best I can. And so when you start to look at your personal brand, look inside, find that music that rings true to what is good. And everything is good. So don't mind daddy wasn't this and mommy wasn't that, and she could have do this and she could have do that. All of that was a part of who you are today. But now here you are able to go back and say, Mom, I'm so sorry. If I only knew you were only 20 when you had me, if I thought of that, I would have been, I would have treated you better. I'd have been a better son. And so I think sometimes when we reflect on who we are, we get discouraged. We get like, we don't want to accept it. We don't want to see it. But in seeing it, it takes you to the next level. And there, yes, I had to apologize many times. I had to say sorry many times because I was like, wow, here I am 25 and thinking this, that, and the next. It's all about me and my mom, 25, had 2 children and she was by herself. What? I don't know if I could have done that, And it came to a point where I got back from school and, you're a boy on East Street. You grew up on East Street, so you go on to school in New York. So, you see the big lights and you come home and all of a sudden your bathroom too small. Mommy, why you got this broom in this front room and why the mop over here? Because you figure everything out of place. They haven't done nothing right, because you just came back with this big degree. And my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen while she was washing the dishes. And I think a little annoyed at the fact that I seemed so discontented with what we had. And she said to me one thing, and I'll never forget, love her to death for it. No man is an island. And here's my mother, who did not go off to college, telling me no man is an island. That means she would have read enough to know what she was saying. And so I started to, at that point, so much sense of appreciation came into who I wanted to be. And I wanted to be so much of who she made me, but I didn't realize it until then. And I started to see all these things that she did to make sure that I maintain my honesty, my respect for people, my respect for authority. All these things just started to make this brand of who I wanted to be. And as I reflect, it's all who she was. She was doing it all along, telling me, knock on closed doors. When you see a door closed, don't go into a woman's purse without permission. All these little things she was telling me all along now manifested itself into this brand of who I am and who I really appreciate that I am today. And so I think that when we look at ourselves and we look at our personal branding, right? We have to make those reflections. We have to say those sorries, those apologies, those things are important. Now, when we look at our professional branding and business branding, not so much a difference. The only thing now is the focus now becomes relationships. How do I build a kind of relationship being this brand that I am? Is it lonely? Yes, it is, because not very many people want to be. They don't want people to dislike them, or so they want to be compromised. I mean, you can see it. You can look at the parliament, right? How many of them will not leave or move because they're compromised? How many of them won't talk about natural resources because they're compromised? You see, the brand that I was built on from my grandparents, straight up, they always told me, you don't need to compromise. You can always go and beat a drum and make money. And so they taught us how to beat drum. They taught us how to ring cowbell. Yes, they taught us how to dance. So I never thought I had to be compromised to be a part of anything, right? If we're all working together, I can do my best. I will do the best I can. In the situation with my government experience, I said to them, I just want to make sure that we follow the law so that I would know how to present a case on behalf of the government. Well, that wasn't good enough for them. They just didn't want me around, period, I guess. And that's fine. I mean, I'm fine. I had a great 4.5 years. Loved the people in Centerville. Loved my working, my constituency, the staffing, just great. I had an awesome time doing that. However, my brand hasn't changed. Same person. I could go to any door in Centerville. Yeah, some gonna cuss me. I see you then I can say, girl, Lisa, not today. But anyway, catch me tomorrow. And she called me tomorrow and be right back like we were when she was in Sunlight Cottage and I was in Lifeboy Street. So I don't have no fears of my relationships because in all of my relationships, I endeavor to be as fair as I can. And so I think I know all these things sound so altruistic and idealistic, but it's these ideals that got us where we are today in our country. You know, we came far, and it was because some of these very ideals that we believed in. I'm not saying I don't fall, I don't make mistakes, I don't digress sometimes. However, my brand sustains me. So your brand has to be sustainable. You can't be one thing today and something else tomorrow, you know? And when I say that, belief systems don't change overnight, right? If I believe in something, well, that's what I believe in. I mean, you can help me to understand a different point of view. And at some point, I will grow into understanding that position and may then determine that I agree. But we have to continue to make sure we are disciplined, we respect each other, we are resilient, and we know who we are. All of these items is what leads to what we call sustainability. And therefore, you're able to sustain yourself. You know, I didn't know where I was gonna, when I took on the job at AMMC, which was the Antiquities Monuments Museum Corporation, they were supposed to pay me. So of course, if they were going to pay me the executive salary, which was $48,000 a year, I started to work 12-hour days trying to get the Antiquities Monuments Museum Corporation to a point where we are in the confines of the law and able to grow the company, not firing anybody, right? Just leaving them and moving them around a little bit just to see the essence of growth for the organization. But when you get to a point where that $48,000, and they never paid me, the Prime Minister simply said to me, you were not the executive chairman. After it has already been gazetted that I was executive chairman in the Gazette, which is the legal documents. And so I guess that was their way of not paying me. So in a sense too, the politics believe that all they got to do is pay us, you know, bait us. And that is supposed to be who we are. That is not who we are. We got to stop that. You know, and here it's coming up again, you know, the baiting. And then again, we don't see them for another four years, right? Or see that sort of a trajectory, see the progress, another 4 years. And so my personal branding has just been about making a commitment to myself and my constituents, and of course my family, to stay true to who I am, and also to respect, appreciate others, and of course to build on the fact that I am, you know, I'm a child of the living God and inheritor of His kingdom, and so I should be well on my way to even more success, especially participating with you guys in the BNRF. So if you have any questions, I feel free to ask. I know that was a lot of talking.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chipman. You did give us a whirlwind, and I thank you for the personal journey of really identifying your pathway and your brand. And I know I'm going to encourage our emerging leaders to ask some questions, but I will kick it off first. You mentioned when you had that interview and you were asked about who your mother and your father was, and that was in your early 20s. So over the course of the years, as you traveled, worked in different areas of industry and pathways, and you also stated that you have to define who you are, not what people want you to be. And so in the aspects of your your self-introduction, did you come up with an elevator speech, or did you come up with a clear thought of the next time someone asks you, who are you, what would you say?
Well, when I was young, I did come up with something, right? Whenever someone said to me, what do you do, or who are you? That was almost the end of the conversation. That was when I was immature and thought, I hate when people ask me that. That's because that's how tormented I was by people asking me who my family was in order to give me a job. It became so discouraging that I didn't even want to hear the question anymore. And then when they, it got to a point where I just shut it down. Like I said, well, why do you want to know? What do I do? Like it just used to get, but then I grew and understood how important that information was, right? And so when I realized that it is important, right? It's important in terms of maybe bridging a gap quickly, building a quicker relationship, maybe understanding. So maybe I was being more judgmental than they were, and so yes, eventually, I grew to understand how important it was to be able to express who you are and what you do, especially if you're in business, right? So that's also a business acumen to be able to say, well, my name is Reece Chipman. Actually, I'm a CPA, also Series 7 licensed with the Investments and Securities Business Association, past president of BICA, but also it depends on the circumstances and where I'm at, right? Because I'm not going to go in Centerville and say, oh, well, I am the past president of Bahamas Investment Securities Business Association, and therefore, et cetera. I mean, in Centerville, yes, I can say that. But their concern was more that I participated on the school board and participated a lot in the lives of their children through being a member of the school board. They were more concerned about me representing them on the board of D.W. Davis, C.I. Gibson, C.R. Walker, also at the Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union. They were more concerned about that. And so there are different places that you communicate different aspects of your career path, which helps people to understand who you are rather quickly. And so, yes, I've been able to develop it. It depends. For example, if I was someone from the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation was to ask me, well, who am I and what do I do? Then my response would be, well, my name is Reece Chipman, Member of Parliament, actually the first Member of Parliament to bring a select committee for the natural resources to the House of Assembly. We also participated I'm also a member of the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. Also participated in recognizing and education of natural resources in Andros and Freeport, and is moving around quite frequently in that area. I also looked at the numbers in terms of the budget and what natural resources has contributed, and also is now in the process of reviewing agreements with natural resources. And so I just use that as an angle to show you how, yes, I have grown to understand the importance of being able to articulate who you are and what it is that you do for the purposes of advancement of any particular area that I find myself in.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for that. I have two questions. One from Prescott. We'll do Prescott, and then after Prescott, Felicity Darville has a question for you. Prescott,
Yes, good evening, everyone.
good evening.
Good
Yeah.
evening, Prescott.
Yeah, it's not so much just a question. Sometimes it takes others to speak for you. I just wanted to, because Reece is a member of parliament, you've taken on some very tough issues, but I think it's important to people who are listening that it takes others to speak. It has been tremendous pressure to bear on the issues that Reece have taken on when it comes to natural resources. Natural resources, not just in our country, but all over the world, whether it be gold or diamond, copper, platinum. We know the history of what goes along with that, the oppression. And so for someone like Mr. Chipman to take on the issue of natural resources means that you are challenging a system that was never about us having true economic independence, because that will only come true when the resources of a country are there to benefit the citizens of a country and not just a few. And so the historic document that Reece mentioned, I think it's important that everyone listening, that they really dive in to this issue, get involved in your foundation, because it is going to take that kind of support for us to overcome the pressure that the average Bahamian is never aware of, that takes place behind the scenes when someone like Mr. Chipman or any other member of parliament stands up to the establishment. The establishment goes across geographical boundaries when it comes to what is happening in our country, where we have the purest limestone in the world, where billions are being extracted and limestone doesn't even show up in our budget. And so you can see they would prefer for us to be silent and continue business as usual. And so I just wanted to say that, because I think for someone like Mr. Chipman, it isn't always easy for a member of parliament who take on the issues to speak on behalf of things. It takes others who know the sacrifice. And I know the threats that came against Mr. Chipman and others who stood up on this issue against these families who control our economy. And so persons like Mr. Chipman need much more support than the average person would realize. It goes beyond us just voting every 5 years. And so, I'm happy to see that the foundation is bringing this awareness and education to our people. But I'm going to end by encouraging everyone who is listening, take ownership of this foundation and get out there and support people like Mr. Chipman who stand up, because it goes way beyond being elected as prime minister of the country when you talk about the issue of natural resources.
Yes.
These families who control this, they give instructions to those who we consider to be leaders of our country. And so Mr. Chipman has certainly challenged the establishment on behalf of Bahamian citizens. And we need to get involved to make sure that people like this are able to survive against such odds. That's all I would like to say. And I encourage Aj, what you're doing with the foundation is very positive. And I want to see all these young people, like I say, take real ownership. It's your foundation.
Right.
Not just a token member. Join it, get your brothers, sisters, your cousin, because once we are together in numbers, that is the support Mr. Chipman needs. If 20, 30,000 of us have already joined this foundation, we would be liberated tomorrow in this country. But as long as we are divided and just talking about it, they will continue to come after people like Mr. Chipman. And I can tell you, he don't want to say this, but the goal is to take him out politically, not for PLPF and M talk, is that anybody who stands up against these family, you are a threat. That's all I wanted to say. And keep up the good work, Mr. Chipman.
Thank you, Prescott. Thank you for that. So as you guys know, that the foundation is nonpartisan. So Prescott expresses views which we welcome as an advocate for the betterment of natural resources and the people. But I just want to put that disclaimer in there. But what I want to move on further, Prescott, again, your words are powerful and it's appreciated and it has to be heard. So Felicity, do you still have a question?
I have a comment.
Okay, now after Felicity, we'll go to Jared.
Reece Chipman, I want to thank you this evening for taking the time to speak to us. Your message was so inspiring that I'm going to watch the replay again. And I may rewind some parts of that. I mean, it was phenomenal. I have known Reece for most of my life. He's known me from a child. My mother, Agatha Watson, is his good friend. And to hear him speak this evening, the thing about it is, we see people, you know, we see them in the political sphere, or whatever, we don't really know them. This is someone that I've known and watched as a child. And, you know, often as a child, children are overlooked, but they're paying attention to everything. And so I can say from the bottom of my heart that everything he said this evening, he's meant and he's proven over decades of time that I've known him. And I'm so proud that you took a stand against wrong in the government and in the political sphere, wherever it was. It makes me so proud. And even in the social settings that you would have been in, my mother, you always carried yourself in such a way that it was something worth emulating, to see, you know, that there's a standard, and that brand that you talk about. This is an overnight brand. I've seen you develop it and become who you are. And I just wanted to say that, you know, your father, I met your father after becoming an adult and being a journalist. And he invited me through what is now John Chipman Street to sit down under the tree. Little did I know that I would end up passing there at least every month to sit under that tree with him. And as simple a man as he was so intelligent in the things of life that people overlook. So when they ask you who your parents are world-class entertainers and cultural giants, and also social activists who have made significant changes in this country. So thank you for taking the time to speak to us this evening. God bless.
Thank you so much, Felicity. I mean, I love you. I you know, I got you in my
love you too.
My mind, my prayers. I love you, girl. Good to hear your voice.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared.
Good night, Aj. Thank you very much. Good night, Mr. Chipman. Thank you very much for your contribution tonight. And I just want to piggyback somewhat off of what Felicity was saying, because when I was listening to your story about you being questioned about who your parents were, it reminded me so much of us as young people not understanding the rich history of our culture. And sometimes when we aren't able to defend our culture, we end up in positions of compromise. And so I wanted to just, because she brought it up as well, but my hand was already there. But I just wanted to say that that's a key point, that we as leaders have to remind our future generations about our culture, about where we came from, so that we could be reminded on where we should be heading. Also, I wanted to ask you, with hindsight being 2020, would you have done it again to prematurely exit helping the people for keeping your brand, your reputation?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that question, Jared. And I hope I am understanding the question. When you say exit the people, now you meant exiting the party.
Exiting the system that is the only system that we have here that can help the people, that can be able to make a change, right? This is the only system we have.
Right.
Right, the party system.
Okay, so exiting
And
the
we,
party.
and we exited that.
Okay, okay, I got your question now. Well, that is one of the narratives, Jared, that they've taught us over the years, that the party system is the only way to go, and that's the only way you can help your people. I actually helped my people more by being an independent and being a part of the party, and let me tell you why. It doesn't matter whether you're part of the party or not. The prime minister is the ultimate leader in the party system. So if he doesn't want you to have anything, or he doesn't think Centerville or Baintown deserve anything, then you won't get it. So if Prime Minister Christie, who had the pen, couldn't help Centerville, if Peter Turnquest, who had the pen, said East End people are still in a car, why in the world would I be a part of a party? I in the party with the pen and can't help. So I might as well be out of the party, giving the people a voice, as well as being able to help with the capital funding requirement of the budget of the $100,000, which Perry Christie didn't even use for the constituency. So when you are sold a narrative that, oh, you can't help the people because you're not in the party, that's only a narrative, my friend Jared. If they don't want you to have nothing, if you want to run in South Beach and they don't want South Beach to have nothing, South Beach won't get it. And so what happens is the politics is even beyond that, right? It's at the level of the prime minister. He decides what area gets what, when, and how. And so me being in a system where you don't even have Centerville counted anyway. Y'all didn't think Centerville was going to be a part of your caucus anyway. Y'all did already count that out. That's the politics of it. And so we have to change that narrative, Jared, that you have to be in a party. I don't have to be nowhere to help people. As a matter of fact, what I am doing based on my relationships with people, relationships with businesses, have allowed me to sustain my position and brand in the Centerville constituency. Why do you think that the PLP and F&M can't get any traction in Centerville? Have you heard anything? And maybe you could tell me. I'm not saying that one or the other won't win. I'm saying that Reece Chipman has maintained his brand because I didn't let the party determine how much the people of Centerville can obtain or can get. And so let's get rid of that narrative that you have to be a part of a party. You could be Jared Darville right there and help a lot of people and help more people than Perry would have helped in Centerville. Just being you. So why do you need to be a part of a party? Right? Now, if the party system worked effectively, where if you do have a member of parliament representing that area should be, that you should be able to assist from a party perspective. But it doesn't work that way, Jared. I wish I could tell you it does, but it doesn't. If you and the person if they don't have you as one of the people, then your constituency might as well be as good as the $100,000 you get. And thank God I was able to use the $100,000 to help the people in Centerville. Otherwise, then it would have been like a lame duck situation, which I couldn't appreciate. So I just want to make sure we get that clear. That's why I told you with your question. I wanted to make sure I understood your question. Your question came from a place where you understood that a person who is an MP can do more for the people if they're in a party. That is simply not the political case in the Bahamas. I wish I could say it differently. I gave you the two examples. Peter in East End, Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader, and Minister of Finance came to the House and said the government need to do more for his people who sleeping in a car in East End. Deputy leader of a party, Jared. deputy leader of a country, Jared. Minister of Finance telling you his people. We have half of the people in this constituency I have in mind.
Well, Reece, I allow you to talk, and I don't want to seem combative, but
No, that's why this is important.
You cannot compare a do-nothing MP like East Grand Bahama to yourself. So those are two different scenarios. You're comparing apples and oranges. Somebody who wants to do something if they had the opportunity, and somebody, whereas if they had the opportunity in the system, that they can have made a change. All I'm saying is that for upcoming leaders, we are looking at situations that at times we do not agree with leadership. And even though we disagree, the ways and means in which we disagree can hinder the main focus, which was and supposed to be the people.
Correct.
And I just want to know if, done again, if you would have been more willing to sacrifice more of your pride so that you could have done more for the people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get your question. It isn't about pride though. I don't see it as pride, right? It's like, you know, and I'll try to make this reference, you know. If I came out of, let's say, you know, there's some gangs, let's say, right? You're in a gang, and I came out of that gang because I told my parents, not my parents, but I told my friends and colleagues, you know, I'm not interested in that gang thing anymore. I don't want to do that gang life anymore. You know, even though in the gang we was helping people, or you could help people because you had the little extra to do what you got to do. I'm not into the gang life. Why would you encourage me to go back? Even though we have a disagreement, I disagreed with them because I know what I saw and what I experienced. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about ego. I don't live like that. The point I'm trying to make to you is when you see me separate myself, remember now, I shared with you earlier today, I was on school boards for 9 years, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, all working with 15 groups of people. Bahamas Institute Chartered Accountants for 9 years. ICAC, I've already been working with people who I disagree with and who disagreed with me. The point is, I'm not gonna gangbang my people or deceive them just to be in an organization that isn't worth being a part of. Now, I just won't do it. And so in hindsight, yes, I would have done the very same thing because I know the circumstances which I was in, and I wasn't willing to be a part of a system where I would compromise not only myself, but compromise the people of Centerville. And so, yes, I would do it again. That's just my position. But it isn't about pride or ego. It's about not wanting to be in a place that wouldn't be good for me or the people of Centerville.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the question. And we're getting tight on time, but I just want to offer the table to any other the emerging leaders. Do you have any questions to present to Mr. Chipman? No questions? Mario, do you have any comments? Andrea?
Sure, I have one quick question, Mr. Chipman. How did you find starting your institution? Was that part of the plan of the branding model, or was that just something from the heart that ultimately led to becoming part of your brand?
Yeah, well, the truth of it, Mario, was that the idea of the institution was formed within an organization that I was a part of. And I said to them, they were a foreign group, and I had said to them that I would like, it was my idea to start the training of the Securities or Series 7 group. So we came up with the idea, I built the concept, the business plan, everything, and I presented it to them. And so it became very successful right from the onset. And so within a month, I asked them, I said to them, well, how much percentage of the business will I have? And they said, we'll have to sleep on it and think about it. So they came back and said to me the next day, and, notwithstanding the fact that they were all Caucasian, I mean, that doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just that they came back into the room and said to me, no, Mr. Chipman, you will get 0%. This was my plan, my idea, my concept. And so I said to them, not even 2%, and from that position, that's when I said to them, well, how much do you intend to pay me? And they said, well, we'll give you an extra $100 a week. And I said, well, I don't think this is worth it for me. And that's when I started my own company. I just left like the next week and I left. And so sometimes, Mario, things happen that thrust you into a direction. No, I did not at that time think that I would have my own business. I never thought, like most Bahamians, believe I will work for someone. I'll get a job and work hard and maybe get a house and family, etc. And so it wasn't, I find with the type of branding, because branding could be local and it could be global. And I find that in branding yourself locally, it's a challenge because of so much narratives that are out there. And of course, the politics get in the way of that narrative, but you have to just stand and keep moving forward. So no, building and starting the institution wasn't really a part of what I thought I would be doing, but it was in line with what God had given me, the tools he had given me, such as I had the CPA license, I passed the Series 7, I had leadership skills. I've been doing work with, like what Felicity said, with her mom in an organization, another organization. Her mother, Agatha Watson, was an organization I worked with for many years. Yes, you disagreed on so many things. But of course, the bottom line is, right, there has to be something common about the way you operate. And so in the politics, what was uncommon wasn't the democracy I thought it was. It wasn't the democracy I thought they should be. And so I said, this is not where I want to be. I don't want to be in a fake democracy. I want to be in a real democracy. And so now that I speak to you, when you talk about if the part of the institution was part of the brand, maybe it was, but I didn't plan that that's the direction I would take. So I appreciate your question. But yeah, sometimes you are branded in a way that you don't even know. That's a gift. Sometimes God gives you that gift and you just gotta use it to the best of your ability.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chipman. I'll give a final opportunity for any of our emerging leaders. Do you have any questions or comments you'd like to share with Mr. Chipman prior to ending the session? Well, before we end, the first thing I want to do is I want to give my appreciation to our Facebook audience. We are streaming this live, and so this will be the end of our session for Facebook Live. This is Aj Cunningham with the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. As Prescott Smith said earlier, this is your foundation.
Yes.
You can go to www.bahamasnaturalresources.org, join the foundation, become a member, come be a part of this process. This Emerging Leaders Development Program is a staple that this is our first class. We will continue to offer this to other sessions. We will also have middle management and executive level sessions in the future. But if for the young persons that's in the Bahamas, you're passionate about natural resources, you do not have the opportunity to learn competencies and skills around corporate development and leadership, come to the foundation. This is what we're here for. This process we offer to our members is at no charge. It's at no charge to you, and our investment is to you, the people, because again, the Bahamian citizens are #1 natural resources. I want to thank you, Facebook audience, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. If you tune in for Facebook Live, our continuing this series will be communication styles, developing and polishing your executive presence. So you hear Mr. Chipman talk about how the personal branding and building that personal brand. Now, when you are in the corporate setting and you have to develop that skill set, how do you polish that up? How you develop it and how you polish that up? We have a global executive from the United States, a Bank of America executive who is Bahamian, and he is in a part of the diaspora. We have several Bahamians in the diaspora, from provosts for universities, other PhD holders in environmental sciences. So we have accomplished Bahamians in the diaspora that's passionate about the Bahamians in natural resources, and they're contributing to this cause. So again, Facebook audience, I'll see you next week at the same location. Thank you, Facebook. Okay, so we're off Facebook. We will continue again, Mr. Chipman. Thank you very much. We appreciate this. We look forward to, you can partake again anytime in the future, for we can have private additional sessions. I'm quite sure that our leaders may have some additional opportunities or questions. You may have a more professional sense in terms of developing resume, branding, maybe you're interested in financial services and other arenas, how to write a business plan, those things. So I know that for those who are meeting Mr. Chipman for the first time, he is truly vested into the foundation. He's a member, he's an advocate, and he's a champion, and he is relentless, as you may know. Like, as he said, not everyone's gonna like him, and but that's okay, because we know that fighting for our natural resources is something that not everyone will try to embrace this, and not everyone will champion this cause. Yes. So Mr. Chipman, I want to thank you once again for the leadership of the foundation and for the emerging leaders for your contribution tonight. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I appreciate of course, your panel. You seem to have, I think that's Jabez, Ethan, Felicity, Gerard, Mario. That's all I can see on my screen. But thank you all very much. It was enlightening for me. I mean, at least we were able to share more of who I am, because, when I get an opportunity to do that, that's always a good thing. And so as far as the Natural Resources Foundation is concerned, I'm committed. I'm committed to it's the foundation. I'm committed to what it will be in years to come. And I think that the more persons you get involved, and just stay focused on the fact, members, stay focused on the Natural Resources Foundation, right? When we start to get into the politics of it, all of that is a distraction from the focus. So let's stay focused on the natural resources, okay? Branding is one thing, and yes, I agree, I'm a part of the political system, and so therefore I am a part of that, but I don't want that to be the focus. I want the focus to be our natural resources. I want it to be the focus to be the fact that you're all fighting to ensure that there is equitable distribution of our natural resources. I want you to be focused on the fact that you need to identify with our natural resources. We need to recognize it. And we almost need to, yes, it's beyond the vote, because there are people who are, and I call them puppets in the House of Assembly, and they thought I was being rude, but we still need to understand that when you look at a ballot box in a first world country, or a country where democracy is high on the agenda, these sorts of things on the ballot box. Natural resources should be, this is on a ballot box for you to say yes or no. Only here, we only vote for people. So we need to vote on our particular issue, what really concerns us. you know, and if the Bahamas Natural Resource Foundation, like Prescott said, recognize, y'all don't, boy, let me tell you, if the Bahamian people just stop listening to the political narratives and foolishness and focus on them sand, that very sand we walk on between our toes. Oh man, see, and that's the kind of Bahamas I'm looking forward to for my children. When they look at that sand, feel it between their toes and say, wow, this is worth millions. And they understand that. So it isn't about whether you leave an organization or go to another or come from another. We are one. We are together, and we are together on this, the natural resources. So that's why I want the focus to maintain. So I know this is political season, and that's a part of it, but I want the message to be sent out that it's about the natural resources. This branding was about how we brand ourselves in a way to benefit from the capital, from the equity of our natural resources. And the only way you can do that is if you are true to yourself, if you respect yourself and others, and again, is if you're honest with your business relations. And so I think those are the items that I want to leave with you, more so than the political rhetoric of partisan politics. I just wanted to be more focused on the natural resources. And so thank you for having me, and all of you, thanks for having me. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more of me because the campaign trail is going to heat up.
Well, thank you once again, Mr. Chipman, and thank you, emerging leaders. And if there's no other questions or comments, we will end the recording now. And I want to thank everyone. Good evening.